Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, listen, while we're getting all spun up on all of this litigation going around the country and we're worried about ATF's pistol brace rule dropping at any moment, let us not forget that there is a rule kicking around that deals with frames and receivers that has already gone into implementation, and we are beginning to see some of the fallout for that. Now, when that rule first dropped, we did a couple of videos about that, and many of you had questions about Polymer 80 lowers and some other very similar products. Well, it appears that the ATF has officially today, December 27th, issued an open letter to FFLs about those items. So let's spend a few very important minutes today and talk about the ATF issues an open letter on Polymer 80 lowers. Okay, so the issue we're talking about today is ATF Rule 2021-05F, better known as ATF's new and improved rules on frames and receivers. Now, I will not go through the long historical aspect of what occurred here, but when this rule was finally published, about the only thing that really significantly changed was ATF's determination of unfinished frames or receivers, what we like to call 80% lowers, and there was certainly a lot of to-do about what this meant as it related to certain items. Now, we have done a few videos, this one here and this one here, where we have tried to interpret ATF's new rules to give you a clearer picture on what actually constitutes a frame or a receiver in today's day and age, and we have done as best as we possibly can, recognizing that I don't think ATF particularly likes to draw bright lines here so that we know where to scribble. Now, one of the things in general, if we're just going to break down this rule in general, is that rather than being based on a percentage of completion, ATF's rules take a look at how readily a piece may be converted into a functional frame or receiver. And so the more that we have milled out, the more that has been pre-manufactured, thus leaving the purchaser with less work to do, the closer we come in that scale of being somewhere between a chunk of material and a fully functional frame, where we now cross the tipping point in the eyes of ATF and now have to fill out 4473s. Now, many of you have asked about Polymer 80 lowers, and lo and behold, ATF today actually issued an open letter to FFLs as it relates to this. Now, I want to make clear that the lowers that we are talking about are the Polymer 80 and two specific brands. That's the Poly 80 and the P80. And then we're also going to be talking about the Lone Wolf, Freedom Wolf 80%, because those are the ones that are specifically outlined in this particular letter. Now, just to cut to the punchline, does the ATF believe that Polymer 80 lowers, without any jigs or any other tools, just the lower standing alone and these Lone Wolf lowers, do they constitute a completed frame or receiver such that we would actually have to fill out a 4473? The answer to that question is yes, they do. And let me give you their explanation. Now, as I give you their explanation, I know many of you are going to start, your blood's going to start to boil, your heads are going to start to explode. Please understand, I'm not endorsing ATF's position here. I am giving you the official word out of the horse's mouth, okay? You could do with this as you wish, but this is directly from ATF. Their open letter specifically states, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is issuing this open letter to assist the firearms industry and the public in understanding whether a partially complete, disassembled, or non-functional frame of a Polymer 80, Lone Wolf, or similar semi-automatic striker-fired pistol, sometimes generally referred to as Glock-type pistols, has reached a stage of manufacture such that it may be readily completed, assembled, restored, or otherwise converted to a functional frame and is therefore classified as a frame or firearm in accordance with the final rule titled Definition of Frame or Receiver and Identification of Firearms, Final Rule 2021R-05F, which became effective August 24th, 2022. So, what ATF is talking about here is your Glock-type polymer lowers, okay? Here's what ATF also states. In particular, the following addresses partially complete, disassembled, or non-functional semi-automatic striker-fired pistol frames or part kits manufactured, sold, or distributed by Polymer 80, known as Poly 80 or P80 frames or blanks, Lone Wolf, known as Freedom Wolf 80% frames, and others with the characteristics described below. And the characteristics that they are describing below are these polymer frames in which the entire cavity necessary to install the fire control group, including the trigger and the sear, and any place for your slide rails to be easily attached with, they've been pre-milled. What ATF is basically saying is, hey, that constitutes a finished frame, and therefore we're talking about a firearm, and now we're talking about a 4473. The ATF specifically stated, as used in the Gun Control Act and the final rule, the term readily does not involve evaluation of percentage of completion for an item that, when completed, will function as a frame or receiver. Rather, the analysis examines how efficiently, quickly, and easily a clearly identifiable component, part of a weapon, can be completed, assembled, restored, or otherwise converted to house or provide a structure for the applicable fire control component. And we're beginning to see that more and more with the 80% AR receivers, and now we're beginning to see this with the polymer. The more that's milled out, thus leaving you with less work to do, the closer we are getting to that dangerous tipping point. And in all instances, when everything necessary to install the fire control group is been milled out on these frames or receivers, ATF every single time is determining these, and this should come as a shock to nobody, that these constitute finished frames or receivers. ATF further explained their position as follows. On the above-mentioned partially complete pistol frames and products manufactured by Polymer 80, Lone Wolf, and similar partially complete frames used to assemble semi-automatic striker-fired pistols, the critical areas of the frame are the front and rear fire control cavities. The front and rear cavities are critical because these areas provide housing for the sear. As further explained and illustrated, removing or indexing any material in these critical areas or completing or indexing any of the pinholes necessary to install the sear are therefore crucial steps in producing a functional frame. And listen, we know that the ATF also has said, hey, listen, we are going to consider any frames and jigs and other tools and instructions that are sold with these raw materials to determine how readily can be made into a firearm and whether it has crossed that magical tipping point. But this is important here because what ATF is saying about these particular frames is, hey, it doesn't matter whether they sold them with a jig or not. These frames standing alone, because of the amount of work that's been done to them, constitute a frame. Therefore, they constitute a firearm, and therefore they require 4473 in order to purchase that. So, once again, this rule applies to any polymer-type Glock-style striker-fired pistols, which are very, very common and popular products. ATF's determination as of December 27th is that these kits, standing alone with or without jigs, constitute completed frames and therefore require a 4473. We will put the link for the open letter down below in the description box. In the meantime, if any of you have any questions about this or anything else related to your Second Amendment rights, you know how to get a hold of us. You can always contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com or you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now, let's remember, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we preach all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.